Nicole Houchin was an Army wife whose marriage had turned into a war zone.
We were fighting about everything. We were not getting along at all.
John Mackay was a professional soldier struggling through his own rocky relationship.
He felt boxed in. He wasn't having fun at home with his wife.
When these two lonely and frustrated coworkers met, sparks flew, and both realized they'd found the excitement they'd been missing from their lives.
The sex was out of this world.
Incredibly intense, a lot of adrenaline.
Their lust ignited an affair that fulfilled their wildest fantasies. But it wasn't long before their lives would come crashing back to reality.
She goes, "That bitch was in my house, that bitch was in my bed."
And when one of their spouses fell victim to a gruesome crime,
It was a slow, drawn-out death.
it suddenly put their bed hopping in a much more sinister light. Now get an insider's perspective to how police unraveled this scandalous tale of sex and infidelity. To determine whether this truly was a crime of passion
She was obsessed with the relationship.
or a cold and calculated plot that led to murder.
The whole thing is just bizarre.
July 27th, 2013, Williamsburg, Virginia. It was just before 6 p.m. in a quiet middle-class neighborhood. A neighbor of Dana Mackay's received a call from Dana's mother, asking if she'd mind going next door to check up on Dana.
She hadn't heard from her, so she was concerned.
Using a spare key, the next-door neighbor entered the Mackay home. Almost immediately, she noticed that something was very wrong.
The house is a wreck.
Stuff was all over the place, which wasn't like Dana because she kept a really spotless house.
The neighbor made her way upstairs, calling out to Dana along the way.
She went upstairs to a bedroom where she found what appeared to be a door that had been kicked in.
Inside the bedroom, Dana Mackay's neighbor discovered why she hadn't heard any response. Dana lay motionless on the floor.
She was face down and naked, and there was a significant amount of blood.
A call to 911 brought first responders running. They confirmed the worst.
Dana had been murdered.
The extent of Dana Mackay's injuries was jaw-dropping.
Evidence of stab wounds on her face and her hands, blunt force trauma to the head.
And just a few feet from the body, investigators made a horrific discovery.
The police discovered also that her finger was cut off. No one could understand why that would happen.
Police were baffled. Dana Mackay seemed like the last person in the world who would die this way.
Who would even do this to Dana? She's such a loving person.
But they had no way of knowing that unraveling the mystery behind this brutal murder would reveal a twisted tangle of perverse loyalties and murderous passions. Born in 1978, Nicole Houchin's carefree youth was a constant search for the next good time.
She was looking for an escape for fun, excitement.
And Nicole found just that when she began dating a local high school bad boy. Surprisingly, their teenage romance endured. And after graduation, they settled down and started a family.
I turned 18 in July. He turned 18 October 21st, 96, and that's the day we got married.
At first, the young couple couldn't have been happier. But when Nicole gave birth to a daughter, the responsibilities of parenthood weighed unevenly on the young couple. By late 2001, 23-year-old Nicole was pregnant with her second child. The pressures of maintaining both a marriage and a family proved too much for her husband to take, and their relationship fell apart. Nicole was now faced with the frightening reality of supporting her family alone.
I was pregnant with my son, and I needed a job.
Soon after Nicole landed a job in retail, she caught the eye of a young male coworker, 22-year-old Nace Houchin.
She was beautiful, blonde, really smart, a lot of charisma.
At first, Nicole had little interest in returning Nace's attention.
He was not my type at all.
But Nace persisted, working his way into Nicole's heart through the two things that mattered most to her, her daughter and now newborn son.
I fell in love from the time that I met her, dedicated myself to her. I treated her like a goddess.
The pair began dating, and Nicole was in awe of her new man's willingness to be a good dad to her kids.
He was just an amazing father. He raised me.
She and Nace were married in 2007. Nicole left her job and stayed at home to raise their kids in a modest home in Williamsburg, Virginia.
I took her 2 kids in. She taught me how to be a husband.
But money soon became a challenge. After a year of just getting by, Nace made a decision that he hoped would provide much-needed financial stability for his family.
He joined the military. The family needed support.
But the additional income came at a high price. Less than 6 months after enlisting, Nace was deployed to Korea for a year, then to Kuwait. The long absences were difficult for Nicole.
She missed Nace being gone all the time.
I had told myself I'd never be married to a military man. So when he left, that's when my depression and stuff started.
By March of 2013, Nicole began to fear that their marriage was in trouble.
We were not getting along at all. We were fighting about everything.
Most of their fights were about money. Nace chose the service to become a better provider. But supporting a family of 4 stretched his paychecks to their limit. No matter how badly Nace wanted to be the family's only breadwinner, the bottom line was obvious.
She had to get a job.
Nicole returned to retail, taking a job at a local auto parts store. There, she discovered the extra income came with some surprising perks. Her husband's long absence had left her feeling lonely and disconnected, but her close-knit coworkers made her feel appreciated. She particularly hit it off with stocky and handsome 43-year-old John Mackay. Soon, the two coworkers stayed in touch even when they weren't at work.
We exchanged numbers and basically we were just going to talk, just texting.
Like Nicole, John had also taken the auto parts job to help support a family. He'd been married to his wife Dana since 1993.
They meet, fall in love.
But just as Nace and Nicole had learned, supporting a family didn't come cheap, even without kids.
He has the pressure of supporting his wife.
And like Nace Houchin, John's solution to family money woes was to heed Uncle Sam's call. Rising to the rank of staff sergeant and the accompanying pay grade helped his family stay in the black.
Everything seemed to be pretty much okay. He had a fairly decent position in the U.S. Army.
John and Dana settled into a quiet life together on track to retirement.
It was just the 2 of them. They had 2 little dogs, and those are like their kids.
But by the time they reached their 20th wedding anniversary, John began to feel that their life was too quiet.
Sometimes when you're married to somebody for 20 years, things may appear to get stale.
And to make matters worse, Dana fell prey to chronic health problems.
Dana was very sick. She was having something wrong with the fluid draining in her brain throughout the body.
The unending demands on John to shepherd Dana to and from doctor's visits and to live by her bedside as a virtual shut-in widened the gap that had grown between them.
Dana was usually either in bed, resting, at the hospital.
Dana's medical bills were piling up fast, and their insurance was only covering a small fraction. So John had to moonlight from Army duty just to make ends meet.
The military is not that lucrative of a career, and he's forced to take a part-time job.
Like Nicole, working at the auto parts counter became both a financial boost and a social outlet. Their playful banter helped John to keep his mind off his problems and to feel like a man again.
She was younger than him. She was paying attention to him. It's flattering.
Long chats at work, followed by endless texts and emails from home, cemented a deep underlying connection.
You had John, who was unhappy in his marriage, and then Nicole, who was also unhappy in her marriage.
By May of 2013, after 2 months of flirtation, the chemistry between John and Nicole was just too much to resist. Both felt trapped in their marriages and far from where they had hoped to be at this point in their lives. The way they shared the same dreams, laughed at the same jokes, even finished each other's sentences, made it feel as though they were made for each other. Finally, the co-workers turned confidants went from sharing hobbies and heartaches to sharing a bed.
We just took it a step further.
It became an affair.
Their intimacy was sweet relief from Nicole's anxieties about her marriage. John's caress harkened back to good times, now so very long ago.
It was an escape to have fun.
And for heartsick John, Nicole was a high-energy distraction from a loveless marriage to a woman whose tragic illness had forced him into the role of caretaker instead of husband.
Here's this girl that's attracted to him.
Incredibly intense and passionate, a lot of adrenaline.
What Nicole now shared with John was powerful, passionate, and new. After 2 unhappy marriages, her romance with John finally fulfilled the promise of a youth spent in search of good times.
It was just supposed to be fun.
John told Nicole that in less than a year, he would be reassigned to another Army base. And when it came time to leave, he wanted Nicole, not Dana, to come with him as his wife.
John asked me to marry him. He wanted to get divorced.
They thought they would live happily ever after.
But after a few weeks, their romantic bubble burst. John's conscience began to get the better of him. He'd taken a vow to be faithful to his wife, just as he had sworn to defend his country. What he had with Nicole may have felt good, but it didn't make it right.
He's got a great wife at home that absolutely loves him. He told Nicole that between him and her were over, that he could not continue.
With a heavy heart, John told Nicole that in spite of their plans, they would have to make do with just being friends. John was bound and determined to find a way to make his marriage to Dana work.
They were reconciled and everything was gonna be okay.
Nicole was heartbroken. But once the reality of the situation set in, she decided to make the best of it. If the man she so admired and trusted could put his best foot forward, so could she. Instead of making impossible plans that would destroy 2 marriages, Nicole recommitted to her union with Nace.
I was contemplating just staying with my husband.
The 2 now former lovers hoped that neither Dana nor Nace would ever know how close they came to dual divorces. But no one could see that a perfect storm of greed, passion, and violence would soon consume both couples. Coming up, police come to a horrifying realization about Dana's death.
Those type of murders are generally done by people that know the victim.
And a baffling crime scene yields an all-important clue.
When they moved the body, they did find a small piece of blue latex that appeared to come from your glove.
From the moment they met, 34-year-old Nicole Houchin and 43-year-old John Mackay hit it off and quickly became lovers.
She was younger than him. She was paying attention to him. It's flattering.
She was looking for an escape, for fun, excitement.
Unfortunately, both were married to other people.
He found himself being boxed in, which he wasn't having fun at home with his wife.
For a time, their pillow talk was devoted to making a fresh start and forging a new life together.
John and I were talking about getting married. He wanted to get divorced.
They're gonna move away together.
But after a few weeks, reality set in. John vowed to return to his invalid wife, Dana, leaving Nicole to make the best of it with her husband, Nace. But on the evening of July 27, 2013, a violent murder would stun their community and put both couples in harm's way. Just after 6 p.m., a concerned neighbor discovered the body of John's 42-year-old wife, Dana Mackay, inside the Mackay's Williamsburg home.
She walked upstairs and found Dana in a pool of blood.
Once investigators arrived on the scene, they confirmed that Dana was dead. And multiple blunt force injuries and stab wounds told them her death wasn't just a murder, it was a bloodbath.
She was face down and naked, and there was a significant amount of blood.
But that wasn't the end of the brutality.
They discovered that a finger had been severed.
The gruesome detail had investigators baffled. Why would Dana's attacker remove one of her fingers? Was this some kind of ritual or message?
It is odd. It just doesn't make any sense.
No one can understand why that would happen.
Investigators turned their attention to the finger itself. When they looked closely at the wounds, the nature and the angle of the cuts told them the finger was collateral damage. It had, they decided, been violently sheared off when Dana desperately attempted to shield herself from the relentless blows and slashes that killed her.
Yeah, it certainly appeared that the finger was removed in the struggle. Those things are indicative of someone who's fighting for their life.
But what kind of person would perform such a heinous and brutal attack, and why? To get their answer, police performed a painstaking search of the Mackay home's plundered ground floor.
The downstairs was completely ransacked.
Details supported a dawning theory that the savage murder was the climax of a home invasion gone catastrophically wrong.
It looks like a robbery.
Dana's attacker had apparently tampered with the lock on the door leading from the garage into the house.
It appeared that someone could have entered using a credit card or something to pick their way in.
And the door to the upstairs bedroom, where Dana was killed and dismembered, indicated a less subtle entrance.
They kicked the bedroom door open. It had been locked, and they kicked it in.
But detectives still couldn't tell what the supposed robbers had taken, where they'd gone, or who they were. A final piece of crime scene evidence, found as the medical examiner prepared to transport Dana's body to the morgue, just begged more questions.
When they moved the body, they did find a small piece of blue latex.
Added together, the clues police had found didn't paint a very clear picture of what happened.
There wasn't much forensic evidence that was able to be collected at the scene.
Motive, but detectives couldn't find signs that anything was missing. And years of experience told homicide investigators that the degree of violence with which Dana met her fate suggested a personal connection between her and the killer.
The brutality of the murder. Those type of murders are generally only done by people that know the victim.
The most personal connection Dana had was with her 43-year-old Army Staff Sergeant husband, John Mackay. But John had been out of town during the murder.
John Mackay was in New York at the time visiting family.
When John received news of his wife's murder, he cut his visit short and came home as fast as he could.
He came down immediately.
He's just devastated.
Pressed for names, John told police that there was no one in their lives he could think of that might have meant his wife harm.
Dana doesn't have an enemy in the world. He don't know who in the world would even do this.
Police remained at square one. So far, nothing they'd learned had ruled out the home invasion scenario. Dana may well have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, even safe at home.
It was a robbery gone wrong.
It must have been just some random act of violence.
But as detectives mapped out their search for Dana's random executioner, the far more complex and personal truth of who killed Dana Mackay and why lie hidden right under their noses. Coming up, investigators uncover deadly ambitions.
They did heavily fantasize about killing for weeks on end.
And gossip becomes a smoking gun.
She just said, that bitch was in my house, that bitch was in my bed.
Army Staff Sergeant John Mackay and Army wife Nicole Houchin had bonded over their unhappy individual marriages. Nicole felt unsupported and abandoned by her frequently absent husband, Nace. John felt overwhelmed by his wife Dana's burgeoning health problems.
His marriage was falling apart, and I was on the verge of divorce.
The affair grew so passionate that the two entertained romantic notions of running away together and getting married themselves.
Eventually, we were talking about it being more permanent.
They love each other.
But it didn't take long for reality to set in. John went back to life with Dana, and Nicole settled back with her husband, Nace. But on the evening of July 27th, one of the obstacles keeping John and Nicole apart violently went away. Responding to a neighbor's call, police discovered John's wife, Dana Mackay, viciously bludgeoned and stabbed to death inside the couple's Williamsburg home.
She had blunt force trauma, primarily to the head.
One of her fingers had been cut off.
Other than the obvious signs that Mackay's home had been broken into and ransacked, the crime scene had offered up little more than a single clue.
There was a piece of a blue latex glove.
John, who had been out of town during the murder, had an alibi and no idea who might have slaughtered his wife.
He can't imagine who would even do this to Dana. She's such a loving person.
Police canvassed the ordinarily peaceful and tight-knit community. Neighbors said they saw nothing out of the ordinary on the night of the murder. But investigators learned that Dana herself had been troubled by events she'd witnessed leading up to her savage murder. And the suspicious activity Dana observed was inside her home. Despite being bedridden, a few weeks before her murder, Dana had managed to attend a family funeral out of town. Dana told neighbors that when she returned, she was surprised to discover John doing a chore he'd always ignored.
He was trying to wash the sheets because he never does laundry.
And the couple's fridge was stocked with unfamiliar goodies.
She found wine coolers in the refrigerator. She don't drink wine coolers.
According to the neighbors, Dana had come to a devastating conclusion.
Her husband was having an affair on her.
Friends told police that when Dana confronted John, her husband admitted the truth. He'd been having an affair with his co-worker, 34-year-old Nicole Houchin.
She found out that Nicole had stayed the night at her house.
She just said, "That bitch was in my house. That bitch was in my bed."
Detectives were investigating a murder, not an affair. But now they wondered, if John hadn't told them about his indiscretion, what else might he have neglected to tell police? 2 days after Dana's murder, police brought both John Mackay and Nicole Houchin to the station for questioning. Nicole dug in her heels right away.
I didn't lawyer up, but I didn't tell him anything.
John, meanwhile, admitted to his fling with Nicole, but assured detectives that it was over and done.
John was basically stating that the relationship had cooled off. He had felt that he needed to stay with Dana.
The interviews netted police little more than a suspicion that one or both of the supposedly ex-lovers wasn't telling the whole story. Then, police received word that someone had come forward with a story to tell and physical evidence to share.
This person stepped forward to investigators and showed them a phone.
The man was an Army colleague of John's. He explained to police that John had lent him a cell phone when his own had broken. John had assured his Army buddy that John's account and personal information had all been erased. But when John's colleague attempted to set up his email on the phone John lent him, he discovered John hadn't been very thorough.
Apparently, he still had left a working email account on there.
Thinking John may have left the emails intact for a reason, his friend began reading them. And once John's friend read the contents, he went straight to the police.
I opened up the emails and solid emails. I knew something was wrong.
They'd been exchanging hundreds, if not thousands, of messages.
Discussions about how much they love each other, how much they want to be with each other.
The steamy correspondence continued well after the point at which John said he and Nicole had cooled things down between them. And as the dates on the emails moved closer to the day of Dana's murder, John and Nicole's email relationship seemed to take a turn for the sinister.
They had been fantasizing about getting Dana Patterson Mackay out of the picture, about life together without her.
In the last email that John had sent to Nicole, he specifically asks if she will be gone before I get back.
Nicole's reply appeared to seal the unsavory deal.
Last response to John was that she's trying to make it happen as soon as possible.
Police now believe they had proof that John and Nicole were involved in the brutal slaying of John's wife, Dana.
That's a fairly damning piece of evidence.
They had something to do with her murder.
But just how much did they know? And how deeply were they involved? While the emails certainly indicated that John and Nicole had knowledge of the death, they didn't conclusively state what the couple knew or what they did. Detectives put the question to Nicole. Just how could she account for the threatening exchanges?
They were simply just emails. They were just harmless talk. There was never any real intention to follow through with any of the discussions of harming Dana.
But when investigators went at John in the interrogation room, he began to play ball. While John maintained that he had nothing to do with his wife's murder, he admitted to detectives that deep down, he couldn't be sure about his girlfriend, Nicole.
He felt that she had a motive. She may be responsible for murdering his wife.
John explained that he and Nicole had planned to get married, but that those plans were torpedoed when his wife learned of their affair.
Dana would not grant him a divorce.
In fact, Dana told John she had a plan of her own. If he didn't end his affair with Nicole immediately and permanently, she would take advantage of the Army's strict moral policy on adultery and report him.
She lays down the law to John and tells him she's going to go to his commander.
John knew that being found guilty of adultery could put him in an Army stockade for a year, cost him his rank, and even his pension. His good name, career, and finances would go up in smoke.
John saw his reputation going down the drain, his pension possibly, and all those years he had spent in the military.
John would have walked out with nothing.
John told police he was forced to break the devastating news to Nicole. Their illicit romance would have to end. John couldn't endure an Army Review Board scrutiny and the loss of the status and pension he'd worked for decades to earn.
He did tell her that he wasn't going to leave his wife, that he couldn't leave her.
According to John, Nicole took the news badly. Her own marriage was in name only.
My husband and I were separated. We still lived in the same house, but slept in different bedrooms.
She had built a world around John and their future together.
She was just devastated. She was emotionally tied up into John. She wanted him.
She was obsessed with the relationship.
John told police that he thought Nicole was on the road to repairing her own marriage to Nace. But he said that Nicole's constant calls and her behavior at work after their breakup had made him wonder if she was having trouble letting go of their affair. Could his girlfriend have been involved in his wife's death?
Basically, John had put the blame more so on Nicole, and she felt that Dana was a hindrance in them being able to romantically get further involved, and that, you know, she was all behind it and that he knew nothing of it happening.
John described a phone conversation he'd shared with Nicole while he was in New York visiting family that had all but confirmed his suspicions.
Nicole calls him to let him know that it's done.
But John assured police that it was only after Dana was found dead that he understood what Nicole meant. When he realized that his affair could have led to Dana's death, the Army lifer told police he was devastated.
He felt guilty, he felt responsible, but was certainly pointing the finger at Nicole for the murder.
Police saw things differently.
All of those things tie together to certainly support that they were involved.
John's innocent act didn't stop detectives from arresting both him and Nicole. But with John in New York, how had slim and petite Nicole dispatched Dana so violently that the victim lost a finger in the struggle?
And it had to be someone fairly strong, and Nicole is not a very big girl.
Investigators were left with one troubling conclusion.
There has to be another person.
Coming up, a shocking confession from a surprising source forces police to reconsider their suspect list.
that there's a third person involved. The whole thing is just bizarre.
And a seemingly irrelevant piece of crime scene evidence suddenly assumes center stage.
They found blue latex in the front lawn.
Being married to other people hadn't stopped 34-year-old Nicole Houchin and 43-year-old Army Staff Sergeant John Mackay from plunging into a torrid secret affair, or prevented them from planning a future together outside their shattered vows.
The whole affair was just an escape.
We just took it a step further. We definitely talked about it being more permanent.
But in July of 2013, John's 42-year-old wife, Dana, was the victim of a senseless, brutal attack that left her dead on the bedroom floor of the couple's Williamsburg, Virginia home.
She had been stabbed in the face several times. There was so much blood everywhere. It had to have been so incredibly violent.
She had blunt force trauma, primarily to the head. They also discovered that a finger had been severed.
After a concerned friend of John's had come forward with a series of damning emails between Nicole and John, police drew the obvious and unsettling conclusion. With his military career and pension hanging in the balance, John was forced to break up with Nicole. He assured police that his devastated ex had plotted to kill Dana without his knowledge. And yet the stockpile of emails John and Nicole exchanged in the weeks and days leading up to the murder told them differently.
They did heavily fantasize about killing her for weeks on end.
Nagging questions still lay between police and a likely conviction. With John out of town the night of the murder, just how had diminutive Nicole kicked in Dana's door and savagely beaten, stabbed, and dismembered John's wife on her own?
Nicole is pretty petite. It had to have been another person.
Until detectives found the mysterious additional conspirator, they wouldn't have a complete picture of Dana Mackay's brutal execution. Forensic evidence from the crime scene offered up few answers.
They found really no physical evidence.
In fact, other than Dana's severed finger and a tampered-with lock, the crime scene only yielded a single clue.
They found part of the blue latex glove beneath Dana Mackay's body.
But the glove bore no prints, fibers, hairs, or other trace evidence that might help connect the dots. Then, on September 17th, detectives got new evidence from an unlikely place. A patrol officer had pulled over and arrested a 33-year-old Army specialist on suspicion of driving a stolen truck. Police subsequently examined the man's own truck parked outside his home. What they found made them reach out to homicide detectives.
During a search of the vehicle, they discovered what appeared to be a confession note.
The note was a written admission to the murder of Dana Mackay. But even more shocking than the contents of the note was the identity of the driver of the stolen truck and the author of the letter.
The person who wrote it is Nace Houchin.
Nace Houchin, the cheated-on husband of adulteress and murder suspect Nicole Houchin. Investigators were shocked.
Are you kidding? Her husband was in on it too? The husband that she was having an affair on.
Detectives wasted no time ushering Nace Houchin into an interrogation room. There, Nace tried his best to walk police through the reasoning behind the note.
Nace shared with them that it was actually a false confession.
Nace explained to police that a recent jail visit with Nicole had left him so distraught that he considered assuming her burden of guilt himself.
He felt bad for his wife's situation and that he wanted to take the blame.
Nace wrote the note, he told police, in a moment of misguided compassion.
I had to do something to help fix the situation, and so I wrote the letter.
But Nace insisted that he'd since come to his senses and realized the false confession was a bad idea.
I was so paranoid, I couldn't go to sleep. I was constantly looking out the window, wondering when the MP or the military or the investigator was gonna come pick me up.
However, he neglected to do one thing.
He meant to throw the note away, but he forgot and left it in the truck.
Investigators weren't so sure. Hard as it was to believe that a cuckolded husband could commit murder on behalf of his cheating wife and her lover, Nace had the muscle and the military training to get the dirty job done. And when detectives took a closer look at the cheated-on husband, they learned that marriage vows weren't any more of an obstacle for Nace than they had been for Nicole.
Nace apparently was also having an affair with another woman.
Both of them are cheating, so it's really crazy.
When police tracked down Nace's girlfriend, she told them that she'd questioned Nace about Dana's death.
She shared with police that she'd asked him multiple times, was he involved in this murder? He gave her vague answers.
But a few weeks after the murder, Nace showed up at her door visibly upset and singing a different tune.
One night, he showed up on her doorstep in tears.
When his girlfriend asked him what was wrong, Nace finally tearfully confessed the truth to his lover.
He's crying and basically admits that he was the one that killed her.
Between the confession letter and Nace's girlfriend's statement, police were now convinced that Nace Houchin was directly involved in the death of Dana Mackay. But how easily would a jury be convinced? And just what happened that night? Police needed something to leverage Nace into giving up his co-conspirators and cooperating fully. In search of proof, they now turned to the Houchin home.
Investigators went to Fort Eustis, to the residence of Nace and Nicole Houchin.
When investigators went over every square inch of every room inside of Nace and Nicole's house, their search came up empty. But then, while examining the small yard outside the Houchin home, police unearthed a piece of evidence that just might establish the connection they needed.
They found blue latex in the front lawn.
Lab analysis confirmed that the scrap of synthetic rubber was the exact same material as the torn glove found underneath Dana Mackay's lifeless, brutalized corpse.
It matched 100% the one that was found under Dana's body.
On November 15th, police charged Nace Houchin with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. But the case was still far from solved. In order to get justice for Dana Mackay, police would need to untangle the unfathomable details of how and why Nace assisted Nicole and John in murdering Dana.
It's certainly unusual to enlist the help of your spouse to kill your boyfriend's wife.
Coming up, on the eve of their three-way murder trial, new details emerge.
If I die, I die, but if I can take her out too, I'm gonna. If I have a chance, I will kill her. No questions asked.
By the fall of 2013, John Mackay and Nicole Houchin's extramarital affair going public was the least of their problems. Detectives in Williamsburg, Virginia believed they had sufficient proof to charge Nicole and John in the appalling, brutal murder of John's wife, Dana.
They were charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
Detectives were now certain that John and Nicole hatched a plan to kill Dana when she threatened to bring John up on charges of adultery in an Army court.
She was basically blackmailing him with his job.
The only way for them two to be together would be to get Dana out the picture.
And the lovers successfully recruited Nicole's husband, Nace Houchin, as the muscle to kill John's wife, Dana, while John established an out-of-town alibi. Investigators hoped that the discovery of a fragment of blue latex glove found on the Houchin's lawn that matched the torn glove underneath Dana's body would turn the three killers against each other. Now, months after Nicole's arrest, police got word from Nicole Houchin's attorney that their formerly tight-lipped client was ready to talk.
Nicole is the first to crack under pressure, and she lays out everything from top to bottom what happened.
Nicole confirmed what police already believed. She and John cooked up the murder together and got Nace to help. But investigators wondered what was in it for Nicole's estranged husband. According to Nicole, it was money. $20,000 in Dana's life insurance, split two ways.
When John proposed the money, the $20,000, they just saw dollar signs.
On the night of July 26th, she and Nace followed John's instructions on how best to break into his home.
They used a credit card to get inside the house.
According to Nicole, it was her husband Nace who, armed with a knife and a heavy automotive tool called a breaker bar, went upstairs where Dana lay asleep.
Once they're inside, Nace Houchin goes upstairs and kicks the door down.
And Nicole said it was Nace that did the gruesome deed.
He went in and he beat her to death.
While Nace savagely stabbed Dana and beat her with the breaker bar upstairs, Nicole had her own job to do on the first floor.
Ransacking the house, turning things over, and making it seem like a robbery.
Nicole took pains to make it clear to police that her participation did not include the grisly murder itself.
I did not kill her. I did not commit the act.
And over, through her detailed confession, Nicole made one more thing clear to law enforcement. Even though he wasn't there, John Mackay had planned every step leading up to and away from his wife's murder.
John set up everything for the murder to happen.
He was the mastermind.
When word reached John that he had now been thrown under the bus, he had his own story to tell.
It wasn't long after Nicole confesses that John breaks down.
John confessed to conspiring with Nicole and Nace to murder his wife. After years of maintaining his innocence, he openly and publicly expressed remorse for his role in the plot.
If I spend the rest of my life in jail because of what happened to her, it won't be long enough.
By that spring, both John and Nicole had reached deals with prosecutors. In exchange for pleading guilty and testifying against Nace, they both avoided trial and the gas chamber.
Nicole and John took plea deals at the same time, on the same day. It was the same court docket, one right after the other.
In February of 2015, both John and Nicole officially pled guilty to first-degree murder. Each other off the hook anytime soon.
At first, I was heartbroken. Because I did have feelings for the guy. I did love him. But then I was just really angry. Really angry. I was so mad. And hurt. I was hurt.
If I die, I die, but if I can take her out too, I'm gonna. If I have a chance, I will kill her. No questions asked.
Those who knew the people involved were left baffled by the bizarre crime and devastating loss of life it caused.
It seems unreal. It's just a tragedy all around.
It's essentially a callous disregard for human life.
A tragic car accident sends ripples through the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
There was a Jeep, a black Jeep, over an embankment, wedged on a tree.
They learned that he had driven off in a rage. Was this a drunken driver who simply went over the side of a mountain?
As the investigation deepens, questions of foul play quickly materialize.
The injuries were more severe than what you would have normally seen in that type of a vehicular accident.
He was in the back seat, which defied all laws of physics.
We felt something was very wrong.
Secrets of infidelity and greed come to light as an unfathomable plot takes shape.
What he told us was this story of having an affair.
They would strip naked and have sex in the open air, not knowing that they were being recorded.
He is willing to fall on the sword for her.
I just don't know how to wrap my head around the thoughts of somebody that could do that.
That is cold beyond cold.
Sevier County, Tennessee is the gateway to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
The thing about Sevier County is I can walk out my back door and I'm looking at the mountains. It's a very small town kind of place. People do tend to know each other. Tourism is another biggie. We bring in a lot of revenue for the state of Tennessee.
On November 6, 1994, two visitors are making their way along the scenic Gatlinburg bypass when they stop to admire the view.
On Sunday morning, two tourists from Missouri went to this lookout site, which is quite well known in the area, gives a lovely view of the town of Gatlinburg beneath them. It's surrounded by thick forests. It's part of the Smoky Mountains. They walked to the edge, and one looked down and said, "Oh my goodness, someone has had an accident."
And there was a Jeep, a black Jeep, over an embankment, wedged on a tree.
They called 911. A ranger showed up to investigate the accident and immediately recognized the seriousness of this situation.
The terrain there, it's trees and shrubbery and brush and things of that nature, and it's rough. Bears and rattlesnakes and all kinds of stuff.
It was Ranger McNutt who responded. When she went down there, she saw a white male with injuries. It had all the markings of an accident.
She immediately noticed the smell of alcohol when she opened the door. The apparent driver was not in the front behind the wheel, he was in the back seat. Was this a drunken driver who simply went over the side of a mountain?
He was bleeding, he had lacerations, bruising. She found that he was not alive, removed his wallet, tried to find out who he was.
It identified him as Kelly Lavera, a lecturer in mathematics at nearby Pellissippi State College and a resident of Sevierville.
Ranger McNutt secured the scene because of our interactions with the park and our relationship. They had contacted us. We figured out where he lived. His wife, Shane Lavera, had reported him missing earlier in the morning. I said, I know her. I watched her grow up. She had moved back to the area with her husband, Kelly Lavera, 4 years ago.
Originally from Madison, Wisconsin, Kelly Lavera was the quintessential all-American man.
Kelly loved swimming. He loved to play music. He loved to have fun and play cards and games and go riding on his motorcycle. He just made the most of every second of his life.
After graduating high school in 1979, Kelly was accepted to the University of Missouri, where he worked towards a degree in mathematics.
Kelly was a wonderful mathematician. He just was a whiz at it. I mean, I think he was born with that talent.
It was during his senior year that Kelly met the woman who would change his life forever. Her name was Shane Mills.
He was at school in Columbia, and Shane went to Stevens College. Kelly was an extremely good swimmer, and he was a swimming coach as a side job to get some extra money. And Shane went to the pool, and that's how they met.
Vivacious and outgoing like Kelly, Shane grew up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Shane had no relationship with her birth father. Shane and her mother were what I would call kind of working poor. You're living paycheck to paycheck kind of thing.
However, things took an interesting turn. Shane's mother, Sandra, had good looks on her side, and she was soon dating not just one of the most prominent citizens in Gatlinburg, but the president of the bank, Brent Mills.
She was about 7 when he and her mother married. Brent Mills adopted her right away. He was one of those people that you saw everywhere. Everybody knew him, very gregarious.
They soon produced another daughter, a younger sister for Shane, Kimmy. So out of this poverty-stricken, if you will, background, Shane is suddenly elevated not just economically, that is in an upper middle class family, but socially.
I went to Gatlinburg-Hickman High School with Shane, and we worked together on the yearbook. She was always smiling, laughing, cutting up. When she walked in a room, she dominated it.
She was president of the ski club. She was the junior Miss candidate. She was Miss Everything in that high school.
She was always talking about her daddy or around her daddy. They were very close. She had the run of Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg was her town, and she enjoyed that.
But Shane's Cinderella story came to an abrupt end in 1984, when her stepfather's bank came under federal scrutiny for alleged fraud and money laundering.
The bank went broke, a criminal investigation took place.
Brett killed himself. I just remember how shocking that was. And it was just a few weeks before Shane's graduation. Brett Mills' suicide changed everything for Shane. And I think that there was some measure of shame because of gossip. And so it was to no one's surprise that she pretty quickly left Gatlinburg.
Looking for a fresh start, Shane enrolled in the journalism program at Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri, where she met Kelly.
When she spotted this handsome young man, he had everything going for him: looks, personality, physique, talent, intelligence. To Kelly, Shane represented a very attractive, charming young woman.
The couple married in 1985. Within 5 years, they were proud parents to their son Cooper and daughter Casey.
She was a very devoted mother, a pretty devoted wife.
My dad loved his kids very, very much, me and my brother. He was a good dad. He was a really, really good guy.
Kelly was a teacher at first in Missouri, and then they moved to Sevierville because he loved the mountains, and Shane was from Sevierville. And he furthered his career and got his master's at Knoxville.
Upon graduation, after getting his degree, Kelly obtained a position with Pellissippi State College near Knoxville, Tennessee.
I remember walking the halls with him, holding his hand. He loved his job. He loved his students.
His students talked about what a wonderful teacher he was, and he made learning fun.
He was only a beginning professor, but it was a start. They had 2 young children and a rather limited salary to get by on, so they settled in a small apartment in an area of Sevierville known as Frog Alley.
I remember the tiny little apartment me, my mom, my dad, and my older brother lived in. My parents liked to have get-togethers. They used to have parties.
The complex is like a horseshoe, and they would literally put their tables out in the middle of the horseshoe and eat and drink and party and play cards and just have a good time.
In September of 1994, the Lavera family was elated when Shane convinced her sister to join them in Frog Alley.
Shane's sister Kim had moved into the apartment complex just 2 doors down from the unit shared by Kelly and Shane.
They had lots of friends and fun. It looked like a pretty good life.
But only 4 years after their move to Sevierville, Kelly's life has been cut short in what appears to be a tragic drunk driving accident. As park rangers begin processing the wreckage, they notice something strange.
When the Jeep was found, it was found with the nose, or the front end, pointed downward. Kelly had lacerations, bruising, and different cuts on his body. Obviously, he was bleeding. The back of the Jeep was simply metal, but the blood trail was flowing in the wrong direction.
Its front end up against a large tree, and leaking out the back of the Jeep is blood. Now, how does that happen? How does blood leak out the back end, the high end of a vehicle that's halfway down a mountain?
Park rangers in Gatlinburg called me, and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said, "We have a death. It is made to look like an accident, but we don't think it's an accident. Would you please come over here and look at it and see what you think?" We felt that this man has been killed and put here.
Coming up, new evidence throws the accident theory further into question.
Kelly Lavera's blood alcohol level was below the legal limit of 0.08.
You're looking at every possibility, and you're trying to eliminate them one by one.
And rumors emerge as the investigation heats up.
It was kind of common knowledge that he was sneaking around.
That was shocking. Here she is once again in a position where there's a scandal following her.
Investigators in Sevier County, Tennessee, are examining the death of 33-year-old Kelly Lavera after his Jeep was discovered crashed down a steep embankment.
The blood was running backward from the front to the rear. which would indicate that whatever happened prior to going off over the embankment. We felt something was very wrong.
We all came to the scene, but the driver was in the back seat, so that was my first clue. Maybe he wasn't driving the vehicle.
This defied all laws of physics. A vehicle striking a tree at speed does not thrust the driver from the front seat into the back seat. It's just the opposite.
We had to figure out what had happened to him. So after we got the Jeep out, we impounded it, and of course removed the body for an autopsy.
As Kelly's body is transported to the medical examiner's office, CSI searched the Jeep for evidence.
We called the lab to process the Jeep, and we got enough samples of blood for forensic testing.
After the samples are sent to the lab, investigators must next make the difficult visit to Kelly's home to notify his family about his death.
I said, let me go talk to Shane Lavera because I know her. And so I went up there to tell her that we had found Kelly.
We informed her that we had found her husband deceased in the Smoky Mountains in what appeared to be an automobile accident. That's all we told her.
At this stage, the investigators had a good idea that Kelly had died as a result of foul play. They didn't reveal this to Shane at the time because there was no hard evidence of it.
Shane, when we notified her of the death of Kelly, she was, just very much in shock.
A young woman from the next apartment came running up and asked what happened. And Shane turned to this woman, who was a younger sister, and said, Kimmy, they found Kelly dead.
Her sister came to console her, and at that point, Shane became distraught.
I don't believe the children really understood what was happening. And, all they knew is Daddy hadn't come home.
It was 4 days after I turned 6. I have no recollection of the day, of a moment that I was told my dad was dead. I have no memory of that.
When investigators ask Shane when she last saw her husband, Shane explains that she and Kelly had hosted a party in their apartment complex the night before.
We're trying to establish the timelines of events. She said that they had been partying that night and obviously drinking. And Shane made the statement that he had been drinking heavily and had gone to sleep on the couch. At some point during the night, she and a couple of others went to pick up some food and came back. According to her, she kind of closed down the event.
Shane says an hour later, Kelly woke up and began accusing her of flirting with a man at the party.
Shane said they had had an argument in the middle of the night and he had driven off in a rage.
Shane said he had been inebriated, and this was at 4:30 in the morning.
She went to bed, got up in the morning, he wasn't there.
We learned that Shane Lavera had contacted the police department and said her husband did not come home. We started interviewing through the apartment complex, asking people if they had seen anything, heard anything. We were trying to find out if anybody had seen the Jeep and or Kelly leaving at that time. Most of them said, no, we didn't hear anything, or we may have heard them partying. There was a water break very near the apartment that night. We went out and found the guys who were repairing the water leak. And they were out there digging in the street, and a man who worked for the city water department saw the Jeep leave. Now, they did not see who was in it, but they did see the Jeep leave, and this was early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock.
While investigators continue searching for witnesses, they receive the results of Kelly's autopsy.
The medical examiner noted that Kelly Lavera's blood alcohol level was measured at 0.06, which was high enough to make it difficult, perhaps, for him to drive the car as effectively as he should, but was still slightly below the legal limit of 0.08.
Per the autopsy report, the cause of death was blunt force trauma. The injuries were more severe than what you would have normally seen in that type of a vehicular accident.
He had suffered severe lacerations and wounds to the head. It was a dozen or more strikes on his head. This is definitely not an accident. He had been beaten severely with a blunt object in the head, like someone had really took some type of tar or bat or club to him and just beat him senseless. It was an overkill. Somebody really wanted him dead because you can just feel that what happened to him was a personal thing because of what we gathered from the scene and looking at the body and getting a professional opinion from the pathologist. We felt that what happened to this man happened someplace else. His injuries were too severe. What happened did not occur in the Jeep.
Now investigators must determine who had the motive to kill Kelly.
Was this a crime of passion? Did he forget to pay somebody that he owed money? We don't know until we start eliminating those things. That's what we had to do.
Later that evening, investigators receive a call from a local resident named Jim Burney.
Jim Burney had called and said that he had some information about the actual incident. We learned that Jim Burney had been called early in the morning by Brett Ray to come pick him up in Gatlinburg.
Brett Ray claimed to his friend that he had been at a party at a motel and been left there and needed a ride home. It was very early in the morning, but his friend, being a good, loyal friend, got up, got dressed, went to pick up Brett, and he recognized immediately that Brett was in pretty bad shape.
His pants were dirty from the knees down. Looked like he'd been running or walking through the woods.
And it looked like he had blood on his clothing.
Allegedly, Brett Ray told him that, quote, I did it. I got rid of Kelly.
"24 hours into the murder investigation of Kelly Lovera, a local man comes forward and implicates 25-year-old Brett Ray in the crime.
We started developing information quick that Brett Ray was picked up by Jim Burney just a short time before the Jeep was found over the embankment. And he took him to the apartment complex in Frog Alley.
Brett lived in Frog Alley, renting spare room from Kim, the younger sister of Kelly's wife, Shane.
Investigators begin delving into Brett Ray's past and learn he has deep ties to the community.
Brett Ray was the youngest son of Rick Ray, who was a publisher of the Mountain Press, the only newspaper published in the Gatlinburg area.
They had a nice home with a swimming pool over on the river, and they weren't quite known in the community by all the locals.
A former Navy specialist in firefighting and vehicle repairs, Brett had left home shortly after high school.
He was having a pretty good career in the Navy. He sailed to the Gulf War and back, and he was actually made a junior officer. But he threw it all away one day.
He enlisted in the Navy, and he stayed a few months and got in an altercation with the chief petty officer and got a dishonorable discharge and came back home.
Brett returned because he simply loved Tennessee.
His dad had hired him, given him a job at the newspaper. I had worked with him, and we were always crossing paths. I always thought of him as the black sheep of the Ray family because he had no ambition about things. He liked being wild, having sex, driving cars, and drinking, and just having fun. He was very young, and he was not all that great about always showing up on time. So the newspaper thing was just not working out.
Brett eventually picked up a job as a motor mechanic in a nearby garage.
Brett was working at Sevierville Tire. They did tires and service work on cars.
Kim, who was Shane's younger sister, had placed an ad in the paper looking for a roommate. And apparently Brett showed up as a result of that ad.
Brett moved in with Kim. And eventually, Brett became one of Kelly's newest friends. He helped Kelly change the oil in his Jeep, and he took part in the parties at Frog Alley.
According to Jim, that's where Brett began developing an illicit romance.
Shane was having an affair with Brett.
Shane would crawl out the bedroom window, go down behind the apartments, and crawl in the window of Brett Ray. Jim Burney said Brett was enamored with Shane.
Following his statement, Jim directs investigators to a wooded area where Brett had dumped his bloody clothes and other evidence from the crime.
We went back and we did the search. We found plastic bags, men's trousers, a shirt, and some other items of clothing that had blood stains.
There was also a blue blanket with a picture of a unicorn on it. We sent it all off to the TBI lab to do forensics.
Armed with an alleged confession, evidence of a potential motive, and possible physical evidence, authorities quickly track Brett Ray down at his apartment and take him into custody.
Obviously, we questioned him, and we asked him what his relationship was with Shane. And he denied any sort of affiliation or association with her. We obviously didn't believe that.
Brett explained that they were friends, and then they knew each other from the apartments. He did not admit to having anything to do with the death of Kelly Lavera. He admitted being over there earlier that evening, that they were at a gathering over there and were drinking and partying, and he was there, along with some other people.
When investigators press Brett about his alleged confession to Jim Burney, Brett asks for an attorney.
He was charged with first-degree murder at that point.
Because of the affair with Brett Ray, the police began actively investigating Shane's involvement in the murder.
While investigators continue to hold Brett in custody, Kelly Lavera's family and friends gather for his funeral, where Shane's behavior catches their attention.
She was talking and laughing like it was a party, and she didn't talk to any of us. She kind of ignored the whole Lavera family. I didn't see her crying. I don't even remember seeing her go to the casket. You would think somebody whose husband was dead would be at the casket grieving, but there was no sign of it. I just had this inner feeling she was involved.
Shortly after the funeral, investigators are contacted by a man claiming to be another of Shane's lovers.
Wade Hill came and talked to us. What he told us was this story of having an affair with Shane.
Wade lived directly across from Kelly and Shane. According to Wade, Shane had asked him more or less to help her kill her husband. She told Wade Hill she wanted the children and didn't want to divorce him.
Wade, being a smart man, said no, but after Kelly was killed, Wade came forward and told us all this.
He told us she was looking at books on witchcraft, trying to find a poison that was not detectable in an autopsy.
He was still in contact with Shane, and as a matter of fact, the morning of his disappearance, she had called him and asked if he'd seen Kelly. He thought she was probably trying to cover her tracks and set up an alibi. It was good information that we didn't have. After this, we knew that she was involved in killing her husband.
Coming up, investigators pinpoint the true location of Kelly's murder.
Using luminol, it lit up like a Christmas tree.
And questions about the ultimate mastermind behind this plot continue to rise.
He was threatening me.
He was threatening me, yes.
She's pointing fingers at him from the get-go.
On November 8th, 1994, 2 days after Kelly Lavera was found murdered, investigators have learned that his wife Shane had asked 2 of her lovers to kill her husband.
We went back to the apartment and spoke with Shane.
Police directly questioned Shane about her involvement with Brett Ray.
We confronted her, and of course, all know, just friends. We party together. We have parties a lot in different apartments, and we all know one another, and we all socialize. When we were talking to her, we smelled Clorox and stuff like that. That place had a real smell of cleaning utensils.
It was a very small apartment, probably 800 square feet. They had the normal things, the television, what have you, but there was one thing, it was when you turn around to go out the door, on the left-hand side of the door was Kelly's diploma from the University of Tennessee.
And we happened to glance at the diploma of Kelly's, and there was a blood spatter on it. It's almost like Kelly was speaking out to us, said, hey, look up here, there's my diploma. So we figured, we found out where Mr. Livera was killed, and right there in that apartment. So at that point, we took everybody out of that house, because from all the evidence now pointing to that something had happened in that house, one of the agents puts his hand on the couch and it's wet. He pulls his hand up and it's red with blood. You could smell somebody tried to clean it up.
It was evident that the crime had actually been committed on the couch.
We called in our lab techs to come up. They have a system called a luminol test, which reacts with blood. So they luminoled that apartment. It lit up like a Christmas tree.
It was amazing what you saw. We went through all the rooms and even out back where we thought the path of travel was.
Kelly Livera was dragged out of the apartment, and you can actually see the drag pattern going from the couch through the living area, through the children's room, through a window, to an alleyway where the Jeep was parked. We didn't have DNA back then. We had to type the blood. The blood was his blood type. So we put it all together and we presented it to the grand jury, and they indicted Brett Ray and Shane Livera for first-degree murder.
On December 13th, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation arrests Shane Livera for the murder of her husband, Kelly Livera. During questioning, Shane refuses to cooperate.
She wasn't admitting to anything. She lawyered up pretty quick.
I was already hearing enough to make me think that she might well have been involved. And I'll tell you, that was shocking. Here she is once again in a position where there's a scandal following her.
I just don't know how to wrap my head around the thoughts of somebody that could do that. If you don't love somebody, just get a divorce.
Following their arrests, both Shane and Brett post bail and are released on bond, while investigators continue building their case against them.
You're looking for motive and the proverbial why.
Robbie had a detective assigned to follow her for that very reason, to see if they were still having a relationship, which they did.
They had to do this carefully. One of their favorite tactics was to drive to the top of a local mountain in a public area. There they would strip naked and have sex in the open air, not knowing that they were being viewed, recorded, and essentially observed by various law officers in the area.
They would meet, have intercourse, and then she would go on her way and he would go on his.
We had all that documented, the video as evidence.
Investigators also delve into the Livera's financial records.
We always thought one of the motives was money. They were having financial difficulties. Shane liked to spend money, and she overextended Kelly too.
And it was also a life insurance policy.
We gathered later on that Shane had called Pellissippi State and asked how much insurance that Kelly had on him.
Kelly's life insurance was basically for only $30,000, although it paid double if his death was the result of an accident.
And in '94, that was quite a bit of money.
If she inherited some money from an accidental death, she probably would have been able to recover what she owed and get out of her current situation.
When investigators receive the results of the forensic testing from the items recovered in the woods, their case is seemingly solidified.
All the blood testing from the blanket, the clothing, etc., went back to the victim.
The unicorn blanket came from Shane and Kelly's home. That was missing from the house, found near the scene.
We always thought that they might have wrapped him in that blanket to get him outside. Also, they found Brett Ray's blood type in the Jeep, which was another nail in the coffin.
Investigators feel confident they have a strong case as they head to trial. But on January 22nd, 1996, 13 months after Brett was released on bond, authorities receive word that his bondsman is unable to locate him.
He was to report to his bail bondsman who had put up the $50,000 bail. The bondsman realized he had a runner, told the police, and then went looking for Brett Ray.
Authorities are on the hunt for Brett Ray after he skips bail in Sevier County, Tennessee, weeks before his trial is set to begin.
I'm concerned, because I want to know that justice is going to be served.
On January 26, 1996, authorities surveilling Shane discover that the fugitive has made contact with her.
We received word that Brett had skipped town to Mexico.
He managed to contact Shane, talked her into finding enough money to pay for an airline ticket back into the U.S. Shane wired the money to Brett, and just 2 days later, Brett was on a flight to Miami. As soon as he stepped off the plane, he was spotted by officials who knew he was being sought, and within 50 steps, he was arrested, handcuffed, and flown back to Knoxville. He came back because he had no money. He had nothing to keep him in Mexico. He figured he had better face the music.
Ray jumped bond and fled to Mexico, where Alicia Shane Lovera admittedly wired him money. Ray was arrested re-entering the country. Both were put back in jail with a higher bond.
With the evidence stacked against him, Brett Ray decides to cut a deal and come clean about his involvement in Kelly's murder on November 6, 1994.
Brett's story was that he had come in after the party to check on Shane, who was sleeping in her bedroom. He simply touched her to see if she was all right, and as he was leaving, Kelly, who had left early in a fit of rage, returned. Seeing Brett step out of his wife's bedroom, he became furious and began attacking Brett.
Brett told the story that Kelly had knocked him down.
At some point, Brett, in his own defense, beat Kelly with the bat. He said he got into Kelly's car, drove around to the back of the complex, put his body in the Jeep, and drove off to dump the car and Kelly over the mountain.
Despite pressure from investigators, Brett refuses to implicate Shane in any way.
It would have taken more than one person getting Kelly out of the apartment. He was taking the fall for her.
Authorities know they aren't getting the full story from Brett, so they refuse to cut him a deal.
He wanted to take the plea and say, she didn't have nothing to do with it, and I'll take anything y'all give me. And the district attorney said, no, we're going to try you both. Through the evidence that we collected, I believe Kelly Lovera was asleep on the couch. Brett Ray comes in with a ball bat and starts beating him around the head.
His body had been dragged from the living room into the kids' bedroom and then pitched out a window. I don't care if the kids are asleep. That is cold beyond cold.
The murder happened in her home, and she had to have known about it. There was no way for her to get around that. because of the cleaning and then the luminol being sprayed. The luminol brought the blood up to the surface. So we believe that Shane was cleaning up while Brett took Kelly to the national park.
On March 26, 1996, the joint trial of Brett Ray and Shane Livera begins in a Sevier County courtroom.
The prosecution claimed that both Brett and Shane were responsible for Kelly Livera's death. Shane's motivation, they claim, was the insurance money, but Shane needed someone to help her murder her husband.
Shane was unhappy in her marriage, and they were living not the way she was used to living.
Shane wanted the money, and she wanted custody of the children, and Brett was her means of getting both.
Brett thought she walked on water, and anything that Shane wanted, Brett would give because he was so focused on her.
Shane's defense was that Kelly Livera had indeed been murdered by Brett Ray, but that Shane had nothing to do with the death. They claimed Brett Ray was caught up in a rather childish romanticism, and he wanted to be with her.
When Shane takes the stand, she continues to claim innocence, but admits that Brett had told her he killed Kelly after the murder.
My son's baseball bat was in the living room. And he said he just picked it up and swung at him to get him away from him. And he said that he didn't back off, that he had hit him, I don't know how many times. And then he finally fell back onto the couch.
Shane's defense was that she was asleep and had no idea that crazy Brett was going to go and kill her husband. It was very apparent that if her lips were moving, she was lying.
Shane admits that after Brett told her he had killed Kelly, she continued their affair out of fear.
He was threatening me, yes.
He was threatening. And so he was threatening you, so you had planned on his birthday to fix him pina coladas and give him a bubble bath.
They're not my plans, those for kids.
She was not aware, of course, that they had been recorded having sex while out on bond.
When it's their turn, Brett's defense team chooses not to call any witnesses.
Brett's attorney had made the statement that his client did not want to present any sort of defense in this particular case.
Brett is willing to fall on the sword for her. He's going to take the blame, and she's pointing fingers at him from the get-go.
After only a 2-day trial, the jury retires to deliberate. It only takes an hour and a half before they reach their verdicts.
The jury came back very quickly, and they found both of them guilty of first-degree murder. And that meant they were staring down the barrel of life without parole. After the jury's already ruled, Shane and Brett changed their plea to guilty. What they were bartering for was life with the possibility of parole. The sentence that they both got was life with the possibility of parole at 25 years.
I don't know that there truly is justice. I mean, if she was truly remorseful or sorry, maybe I could agree to what she got, but she wasn't.
I don't feel like she's ever expressed any remorse. Am I sure she's remorseful? I hope so.
14 years into Shane's incarceration, Casey Livera attempts to reconcile the relationship with her mother.
I was very, very mad at her for a very, very long time. Lots of anger. I had to let go of that. I was 22. It was Christmas Day. We were at my Mimi's, which is her mom's house in Tennessee. She'd never called me, but she was calling her mom, and she knew I was there. And I just decided that if I'm gonna talk to you, it's not gonna be fake. I need you to admit to your guilt, or there's no point in this for me. So I asked yes or no questions. You admit that you are guilty, and she said yes. You admit that you had a part in my dad's death, and she said yes. It just felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders.
After serving 25 years, Shane Lavera is granted parole and released from prison in January 2022.
She's walking around free and clear, but Kelly's still dead. He'll always be gone. We won't ever have that joy of having him around.
I wish I could tell my dad how much I love him. I really wish he could see me be a mom. And I know he does see me being a mom. I wish he could be Grandpa. I wish my kids could meet him. I missed out on having a best friend. I just imagine him being there for me through all the ups and downs. It's hard to think about. Maybe it would be the opposite of the life I had, where I was very, very alone. So it's hard, but I just hope that I'm making him proud now.
Kelly's kids lost something precious. They're not ever able to know the man that they could have had in their life. He's in here and will always be in here. And that's the main thing, the memories, the love.